Tyler smashed keys on his synthesizer as the club boomed, music blasting alien eardrums to bleeding pulp as Ferengi clutched heads. Amazed humans enjoyed this madness. Tyler's wild electronic and classical fusion had the New York club jumping. Craxon, Ferengi trade boss, stared in shock. His big-eared, sharp-toothed kin never heard such sounds. Profit was life for Ferengi. Fun was illegal. But Craxon craved this strange human art. He fought the crowd, reached Tyler, proposed a fortune to play for Ferengi elite, spread the revolution. Tyler saw cash signs, a galaxy craving his beats. But on Ferenginar, fun meant death. Craxon put his life on the line for one show to free his joyless race. As government goons closed in, Tyler prepped to rock the planet or see Craxon jailed and the Ferengi doomed to eternal greed. Let the Galactic dance revolution begin. Tyler wasn't about to let a little thing like the threat of death stop him from bringing the joys of music to the Ferengi. He and Craxon got to work on their plan for an underground concert that would rock Ferenginar to its core. They started by recruiting a small group of Ferengi who were just as fascinated by the alien concept of music and dance as Craxon was. Among them was Craxon's younger brother, Nix, a tech whiz who knew his way around sound systems. "I can rig up something that'll blow their minds," Nix said with a sharp-toothed grin. "Just point me to the equipment." Tyler and Nix spent hours in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the capital, setting up a clandestine sound system that would make any DJ on Earth green with envy. As they worked, Tyler regaled the Ferengi with tales of Earth's musical history. "And then there was this guy named Beethoven," Tyler said, connecting wires with deft fingers. "Deaf as a post, but he wrote some of the most beautiful music the world has ever heard." The Ferengi listened with rapt attention, their large ears twitching with every word. They were particularly intrigued by the idea of music as a form of self-expression, something that was completely foreign to their profit-driven mindset. "You mean to tell me that humans make music just because they feel like it?" Craxon asked, shaking his head in disbelief. "That's the beauty of it," Tyler replied with a grin. "It's not about the latinum, it's about the feeling." But not everyone on Ferenginar was thrilled about the upcoming concert. Zek, a high-ranking Ferengi official and Craxon's rival, got wind of the plan and was determined to put a stop to it. "This is an outrage," Zek fumed, pacing back and forth in his opulent office. "Craxon is violating the very foundation of Ferengi society. We cannot allow this to stand." He turned to his nephew, Brunt, a ruthless enforcer with a reputation for getting things done. "Find out where this concert is happening and gather evidence. We'll expose Craxon for the traitor he is." As the date of the concert approached, tensions were running high. Tyler and the Ferengi group worked around the clock to keep their plans under wraps, while Zek and Brunt closed in on their location. On the night of the show, hundreds of curious Ferengi gathered at the warehouse, drawn by the promise of something new and forbidden. The air was electric with anticipation as Tyler took the stage, his synthesizer gleaming under the lights. At first, the crowd was hesitant, unsure of what to make of the strange sounds coming from the speakers. But as Tyler's music swelled and pulsed, they found themselves drawn in, their bodies moving almost of their own accord. Just as the concert reached its climax, the doors burst open and Zek and Brunt stormed in with a team of armed security forces. "Shut it down!" Zek shouted, his eyes blazing with fury. "You're all under arrest!" The warehouse erupted into chaos as Zek's security forces surged forward, ready to arrest Tyler and the Ferengi rebels. But before they could reach the stage, a booming voice cut through the commotion. "Stop right there!" All eyes turned to the entrance, where a figure stood silhouetted against the bright lights outside. As he stepped forward, the crowd gasped in recognition. It was none other than Rom, the Grand Nagus himself. Zek's jaw dropped. "Your Excellency, what are you doing here?" Rom strode into the warehouse, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "I've been monitoring this situation closely, Zek, and I must say I'm impressed." He turned to Tyler, who stood frozen at his synthesizer. Young man, you've brought something truly remarkable to Ferenginar, something that could change the course of our entire civilization. Tyler blinked in surprise. I have. Rom nodded. Music, my boy, music, the ultimate untapped market, and you, Tyler, are the key to unlocking its potential. He spun to face Zek and Brunt, who were still standing with their mouths agape. As of this moment, I am investing in Tyler's music. We're going to spread it across the galaxy, to every race and every planet. The Ferengi Alliance is about to enter a new era of prosperity. Zek sputtered in disbelief. But Your Excellency, this goes against everything we stand for. The rules of acquisition clearly state— The rules of acquisition are meant to be adapted, Zek, Rom interrupted. And I'm adapting them now. Tyler's music is the future, and we're going to be the ones to profit from it. He turned to Kraxon, Nix, and the other Ferengi rebels. You've all shown remarkable initiative in organizing this concert. I'm appointing you as key members of our new musical venture. You'll be in charge of managing Tyler's performances and promoting his music across the galaxy. Kraxon's eyes widened. You mean it, Your Excellency? Rom grinned. I never joke about profit, Kraxon. Now let's get to work. We have a galaxy to conquer with music. News of the Ferengi Alliance's new musical enterprise spread like wildfire. Alien races across the galaxy were intrigued by this strange new art form from Earth, and soon Tyler and his Ferengi team were touring from planet to planet, introducing diverse audiences to the power of music and dance. On Vulcan, known for its logical and emotionally suppressed inhabitants, Tyler's performances sparked a cultural revolution. Vulcans who had never before tapped into their emotions found themselves moved by the raw passion of Tyler's music. They began to embrace the concept of emotional expression through art, leading to a renaissance in Vulcan culture. Meanwhile, on the warlike planet of Konos, home of the Klingon Empire, Tyler's high-energy shows resonated with the Klingons' love of battle and honor. They incorporated his beats into their warrior training, creating a new form of ritual dance that became a staple of Klingon culture. As Tyler's fame grew, he became known as the Human Music Ambassador, a galactic celebrity whose performances drew massive crowds and generated huge profits for the Ferengi Alliance. Rom was thrilled with the success of his new venture, and he spared no expense in promoting Tyler's music across the stars. But not everyone was happy with the spread of human music and its influence on alien cultures. A group of conservative leaders from various races, led by a charismatic figure named Zoltar, began to speak out against what they saw as a corrupting force that threatened their traditional ways of life. This so-called music is nothing more than a primitive mating call, Zoltar declared in a widely broadcast speech. It appeals to the basest instincts of our people, undermining the very foundations of our civilizations. We must put a stop to it before it destroys us all. As Zoltar's movement gained traction, Tyler and his Ferengi allies found themselves facing a new challenge. They knew that music had the power to bring people together, but could it also tear them apart? Only time would tell. As Tyler's music continued to spread across the galaxy, not everyone was thrilled about the cultural shift it represented. Zoltar, the charismatic leader of a conservative faction, saw the growing influence of human music as a threat to the traditional ways of life on many planets. He began to stage protests outside of Tyler's concerts, his followers waving signs with slogans like, "Keep our culture pure," and "No more human imperialism." At first the protests were peaceful, if a bit rowdy, but as tensions mounted, some of Zoltar's more radical supporters started to get violent. On the planet Andoria, a group of masked assailants threw rocks at concert-goers as they entered the venue, shouting insults and accusing them of being traitors to their own species. Security forces managed to quell the disturbance, but not before several people were injured. Zoltar himself took to the airwaves, giving impassioned speeches about the need to resist the temptation of foreign influences. The Ferengi are using this human and his so-called music to line their own pockets, he declared, his eyes flashing with anger. They care nothing for the cultural damage they are inflicting on our people. We must stand firm and reject this insidious form of imperialism." His words struck a chord with many who felt that their way of life was under attack. Protests sprang up on dozens of planets, some turning into full-scale riots. Tyler and his Ferengi team found themselves facing increasingly hostile crowds, some of whom hurled more than just insults. As the situation escalated, the United Federation of Planets decided it was time to step in. They convened a special summit on Earth to discuss the issue of cultural exchange and its impact on galactic society. Tyler was invited to speak at the summit, along with representatives from various alien races. Zoltar and his supporters were also in attendance, their presence adding an undercurrent of tension to the proceedings. When it was his turn to take the podium, Tyler took a deep breath and looked out at the sea of faces before him. Some were friendly, others openly hostile, but he knew he had to speak from his heart. "I understand the concerns that have been raised about the spread of human music," he began, his voice steady, "and I want to make it clear that I am not here to impose my culture on anyone. Music is about bringing people together, not tearing them apart." He went on to talk about how music had the power to bridge divides and foster understanding between different species. "When we share our art and our traditions with each other, we gain a greater appreciation for the diversity of the galaxy. We see that despite our differences, we all have something valuable to offer." Tyler also acknowledged the valid points that Zoltar and his followers had raised. It's true that the rapid spread of new cultural influences can be disruptive, even threatening. That's why I propose the creation of a new organization, one dedicated to promoting cultural exchange in a way that is responsible and respectful of each species' unique heritage. As he spoke, Tyler could see some of the delegates nodding in agreement. Even a few of Zoltar's supporters looked thoughtful, as if considering his words. In the end, the Federation Council was impressed by Tyler's proposal. They voted to establish the Galactic Cultural Exchange Program, with Tyler appointed as its first director. The organization would work to facilitate the sharing of art, music, and other traditions among alien races, while also taking steps to preserve and protect each species' distinct identity. As the summit wrapped up, Tyler felt a sense of hope for the future. Yes, there were still challenges ahead, but he believed that music had the power to bring the galaxy together in a way that nothing else could. He and his Ferengi team began to prepare for their biggest concert yet, a massive event on the planet Babel that would be broadcast across the stars. They enlisted performers from dozens of different species, each bringing their own unique style and flavor to the mix. But even as they worked to set up the stage and the elaborate lighting rigs, Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Craxon and Rom had assured him that security would be airtight, but he still felt a sense of unease. As the concert was about to begin, with millions tuning in from across the galaxy, Tyler's worst fears were realized. A group of masked figures suddenly burst onto the stage, wielding weapons and shouting slogans of cultural purity. At their head was none other than Zoltar himself, his eyes burning with a fanatical light. "This ends now," he shouted, his voice amplified by the speakers. "We will not allow this human filth to corrupt our way of life any longer." The crowd erupted into chaos as security forces rushed to confront the attackers. Tyler and his Ferengi friends found themselves caught in the middle, dodging blaster fire and trying to protect the other performers. It was a shocking turn of events, one that threatened to undo all the progress that had been made. But even as the battle raged around him, Tyler knew that he couldn't give up. The music mattered too much, the connections it fostered too important. He just hoped that somehow, someway, they could find a way to turn the tide and bring the galaxy back together once again. The crowd screamed as masked attackers stormed the stage, energy weapons firing into the air. I grabbed the nearest mic stand to defend myself, but it was pure chaos. Nix shouted to me over the noise, "Tyler, we need to get these people out of here." I nodded, my heart pounding. This was supposed to be a celebration of unity, not a bloodbath. Zoltar's goons were everywhere, locked in combat with our security team. I saw a group of terrified Vulcans huddled near the stage. "This way." I waved them towards the nearest exit. "Nix, cover me." Nix fired his phaser, dropping one of the attackers as I herded the concert-goers to safety. All around us the battle raged. Klingons grappled with masked assailants, Ferengi ducked and wailed, Andorians unleashed battle cries as they fought back. Then I heard Craxon's voice over the din. "Tyler, look out!" I turned just in time to see one of Zoltar's men aiming a disruptor right at me. Time seemed to slow down as I braced for the end, but suddenly Craxon was there, throwing himself between me and the blast. The green bolt struck him square in the chest. He crumpled to the ground, smoke rising from his torso. "Craxon!" I screamed, dropping to my knees beside him. His eyes were glassy, his breathing ragged. "Why'd you do that, you idiot?" I demanded, tears stinging my eyes. Craxon coughed, blue blood flecking his lips. "Because you're my friend, and the galaxy needs you, more than it needs me." Medics rushed over, pushing me aside as they loaded Craxon onto a stretcher. I watched them carry him away, my fists clenched in rage and grief. Zoltar had gone too far this time. He wanted a war. I'd give him one. In the days that followed, as Craxon clung to life in a Ferengina hospital, Nix and I gathered our most trusted allies from across the quadrant. We pored over every scrap of intel, every rumor and whisper about Zoltar and his so-called purist movement. And the more we dug, the uglier the truth became. "He's been working with the Orion Syndicate," Nix reported grimly, tapping at a holoscreen. "Weapons deals, slave trading, the works. The anti-music rhetoric is just a smokescreen." I nodded, my jaw tight. "And we're going to expose him for the fraud he is." Our strike team moved in on Zoltar's compound under cover of darkness. We cut through his defenses, like a hot knife through butter, our phasers set to stun. I wanted that bastard alive to face justice. We found him in his command center, hunched over a console as alarms blared. He spun to face us, his eyes wild. "You fools, you've ruined everything." "It's over, Zoltar," I said, my voice cold. "The whole galaxy will know what you really are." He laughed, a manic sound. "You think I care about music, about culture? It was never about that." We circled each other, weapons drawn. "Then what was it about?" I demanded. "Power," Zoltar snarled. "Control. I would have ruled this pathetic galaxy if not for you meddling humans and your insidious influence." "Diversity isn't a weakness," I shot back. "It's a strength, and you'll never understand that." Zoltar's face twisted in rage. "If I can't have the galaxy, and then no one will." His hand slammed down on the console. A robotic voice echoed through the compound. "Self-destruct sequence initiated." We had seconds to act. Nix and I grabbed Zoltar, dragging him kicking and screaming as we raced for the exit. We barely made it out before the whole place went up in a fireball, the shockwave knocking us off our feet. In the smoking ruins we found the charred remains of Zoltar's followers. They'd been willing to die for his lies. I felt sick to my stomach. The fallout was immediate and devastating. The Federation launched a full investigation into Zoltar's activities, uncovering a web of corruption that spread across a dozen worlds. The Galactic Cultural Exchange Program was put on hold indefinitely, and I was done. I stood in Rom's office, my head bowed as the Grand Nagus spoke. "The Ferengi Alliance appreciates all you've done, Tyler, but the winds of commerce have shifted. It's time for us to move on." I nodded, too numb to argue. "I understand." As I packed my bags, preparing to return to an Earth I barely recognized anymore, Craxon limped into my quarters. He was still recovering, his face gaunt and pale. "The Council asked me to take over the GCEP," he said quietly. "I accepted. We can't let Zoltar's hate win." I clasped his shoulder. "No one better for the job, but I think it's time for me to bow out." "What will you do now?" Craxon asked. I managed a rueful smile. "Honestly, I have no idea, but I know I can't stay here, not anymore. My journey had begun with a dream of uniting the galaxy through music. But now, as I boarded the transport back to Earth, that dream had never felt further away. All I could do was hope that someday, somehow, the message would endure, even if the messenger had to walk away. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.